recording just a little bit.
I wanna be the best in the game, invest in my name. Check no restraints, I'm obsessed with the pain. I ingest, I retain, assess and I change. Possessed by the thought I'll be free one day from society's restraints. Money, clout and fame, mud, disease, a plague. We all love to hate, have to play the game, have to make a name. All our insecurities are on display. This is war with the enemy, think that it was meant to be. Living in a time where disease is on every screen. I won't let them fester me, I know most are festering. Negative.
What's going on, everyone? Today we're doing W140 installation. So just some tips that I found when doing the W140 and putting in air suspension. So as you all know, with W140, majority of the older Mercedes chassis, this is an extended saloon W140. But as you guys know, that with all of the Mercedes chassis, the front is under constant pressure. So you 100% need a special spring compressor when you're bagging these vehicles or when you're removing any kind of suspension. There's a special Mercedes type of a spring compressor. These types of spring compressors, which are the basic ones that everyone kind of uses, that you can buy for $13, $14, $15, even $20 from, like Princess Auto or anything like that, or Harbor Freight, are okay. They work pretty decent for majority of the vehicles, but Mercedes is kind of very specific because it uses really huge springs like this. We removed one from the back. It wasn't too hard. Now keep in mind, this Mercedes actually has H&R springs installed. So all the suspension has been loosened up, and the springs are not as extreme load as regular OEM springs because the OEM springs are a lot bigger. So it's a little bit easier to remove H&R springs or springs if the car is already lowered on springs, because of the fact that the springs under a different load, they're a lot more compressed or lowered, so they're not as large or tall. So what I did for the rear wasn't really as hard. I removed the shock bolt first in order to loosen it up. Then I used one of these modified tools that I made myself. Basically, it's a chopped up support a jack that I've made to work on a scissor lift. It's a custom tool. I basically chopped the bottom, and what I did is I support the lower control arm over here, and I remove the center bolt over here, or the bolt that supports it from here, and then slowly lowered it down. So by basically relieving the pressure of the of the spring using this support bar, and then what that did is lower the lower control arm, and I was able to remove this spring. So the rears are not very complicated, especially if the car has been lowered. The fronts are going to be a little bit of a pita. Now, there's a specialized Mercedes spring tool that has been available now on the market for a bit. They're not expensive, about $200 or so. And this is for the puppy right here. And as you can see, there's not a lot of clearance here in order to slide a traditional spring compressor. So you need to use a blade style spring compressor or a special spring compressor replica that Mercedes uses. And what it is they put plates, or like a flat plate that goes in between the highest. Well, most people put it over here and then they slide it around because it's very hard to put it, but the highest point of the spring, and then sort of the lowest point of the spring, or around here somewhere, and then they slide the actual rod through an opening in here. And then what happens, as you can tell, is the upper and the lower plate is kind of locked. And then what happens is, since the rod is protruding on the bottom, you have a screw, and then what that does is the screw sort of compresses the two plates together, and thereby releasing the tension, and you're able to remove this spring. Now, bagging this 140 is going to be super simple because it already has brand new shocks in the front. The rear has hydraulic support shocks, which we're going to kind of outline on how you can do and bypass that whole setup. This is my first W140. This is cool. I mean, I've done tons of cars, so it shouldn't be very, very tough. I'm employing a lot of the tools and a lot of the skills that I've learned through various vehicles in order to do these things. It's good fun for me. I'm helping my friend out, so it's a good opportunity for me to do a vlog in regards to it. But the W140 is a hot chassis right now. If you can get one, definitely get it, but you're definitely not going to get one in such a nice mint condition like this one is. But I'm going to be sort of recording some of the things that I'm finding out, or some tips and tricks. So the first tip and trick I just showed you guys, if the car is lowered, kudos to you. It's a lot easier to work on because of the fact that obviously the lowering springs are not as long as the OEM springs. So if you can pick one up that's already lowered on springs, do that one. and make it easier if you want to go bags, right? Obviously, but so we're going to focus on that. Please, under any means, use this as sort of a how-to on how to do a W140 suspensions. This is just some of the tips that I'm sort of sharing with you guys. So the rear was easy because we just put a support bar underneath the lower control arm. We loosened everything up and we kind of just lowered it down in order to relieve the pressure from the spring. The front is going to be a little bit tougher, but I ordered a special spring compressor, different than the one that I have there. I ordered a blade style spring compressor that you can still kind of put through here. They're like little blades that go through, but the actual adjustment part is going to be going on this side. And what it is we'll compress it specifically, and we'll also kind of do the same situation, and I'll be able to slide out the spring easily. So should come in a couple of days. And then when it does, I'm going to continue on and we're going to do some more of, and whoops. Let me to flip through. We're going to do more of this vlog, and then we'll see whether that spring compressor is going to work just as good as the Mercedes-Benz style one. Unfortunately, Amazon has it, but for me to be able to get the one that I want, which was the Mercedes style one, because I have a feeling I'm going to do a lot more Mercedes after this video, then I'm going to sort of have to order a different one, but this one was readily available, should be here in 2 days. So we're going to see. It's a completely different style than the one that you guys are used to. It's going to be a different style. So we're going to see how well it works. Hopefully it works great. And if it does, then we can get rid of the spring and put in the air springs. Then the next step is going to be to seal off the hydraulic system where it's going to be disabled, put in the rear air springs, new shocks that are not hydraulic shocks, then run the lines, and then by then we'll be able to see how the car sits, because then I'll be able to employ static air and I'll be able to move it around by inflating the bags or the lines using just a regular inflator and a shorter valve. That way I'll be able to move the car around. I'll be able to install any electronics that we need. This car is going to be running a 3-piece setup, which I'm excited for. We're going to do a small little custom trunk for this, and hopefully this thing is going to be on the ground. Can't wait. Okay, so basically, because this is air, it's not really air, it's hydraulic assisted rear shock. It basically levels out the right. You need to remove the rear shock. So as you can see here, I removed the fitting, and I'm bleeding the hydraulic fluid into a pan. And a tip, when you guys want to remove the shock, don't remove the shock first, remove the spring first, and remove everything else. And basically leave it in this position. As you see, the lower control arm is removed. And have really nice clear access to turn the wrench. And this is done with 2 spanner wrenches, basically, a 19 and a 17. But the trick is if you kind of hide behind here where I am, and you kind of initially loosen this one with a 19, and then you spin this one around, because this one's not going to really spin, because this fitting is not a turn fitting. This fitting is a turn fitting. It's a 17, so you're able to get the wrench on there and basically turn it, and as you're turning it, you're kind of loosening it up and threading out the actual line until it's fully removable, and that will give you a clear access in order to remove the shock. So I highly recommend, as a tip, when you guys are removing the hydraulic system, because what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to take this hydraulic system later for any air suspension setup on the W140 or Mercedes that have these hydraulic setups. A free tip here for you guys is you're going to have to basically link the system and bypass it. And the way you bypass it is you bypass it by this link module over here, or you bypass it from the link module. So you bleed the whole system out, and you bypass it right here. See these 2 lines that are protruding outside of this module? You're going to link them together. So basically you're going to surround the whole loop of the rest of the system, because I believe this system is also shared by one of the pumps. The owner told me about it, but this is the easiest way to do it. So I'm gonna bleed the system now, remove the shocks, and then eventually remove these lines from this module here, and then link them using a compression fitting. So we'll basically create a loop back into the system, but bypass this, because this module leads into the 2 individual rear shocks. So we want to basically bypass that whole system, and we want to remove it from it, and we want to link these 2 lines together. So that will be on the next video. Okay, so the rear struts, once you remove the air shocks, it's very easy. I put all the air shocks in here, and the Bilstein replacement shocks, because we're going to be running regular Bilsteins, no more of the SLS hydraulic shocks in the back. So here are the Bilsteins right here. Helpful tip if you're working with by yourself. Get a bunch of wood blocks, and then that will allow you to sort of elevate the shock once it's in through the hole, so that way you don't have to hold it and get somebody to you know, to put the bolt on top of it, or the nut on top of the actual strut. So a little trick. Make sure you always have bits and pieces of wood like this handy around the garage. Makes it very easy if you're jacking it on jack points or anything like that. Wood is always good, especially like 6-inch blocks like these by 2x4s. And there you go, very useful. You can hold up the actual shock up, and then that will allow you to screw it in from the top. They're located behind the carpet. This is the driver's side, or the left side strut, and this is the right side strut right here behind, which is being held up. As you can see, the threads are sticking out, and now it'll make it easy for me to put the nut on top and secure it up before I put the bags in. So a little helpful tip for you guys. Okay guys, so the rear bag of the W140 is in, and we replaced the SLS shock with a regular Bilstein shock. So this is it. We're gonna run the line through here, close to where the OEM fitting is over there. We're gonna run it through here, going right into the fitting over there, and then going behind the vents of the bumper here. So it's nice and clean, not a lot of travel, which is very simple, away from the exhaust, and there's no issues here. And yeah, but that's basically the bag, and that's the rear of W140. Okay, how's it going, guys? So this is pretty much what is left over from the line, and those familiar with W140s and the SLS rear system, from the air pressurization valve, or the SLS self-leveling suspension valve, which is basically this sucker over here. These are the fittings that go into it. So what we're doing is we're eliminating the SLS system, but you know, plugging it up over here at the side of the shocks is probably not a good idea, because this valve will pressurize the system. So there's a potential of a bit of an explosion here if you just put a cap on the lines. Some guys have issues where they just capped off the rubber line that goes over here from the shock, and they've had some issues with this whole system. So what we're doing is we're actually fully bypassing the SLS system. We're removing the fittings from the pressurization valve here. These are obviously the rear cylinders, the shocks. Now we have Bilsteins running, and we're going to basically loop this section over here. But it's not as easy as basically removing these suckers and then just unthreading the fittings that are in here from the pressurization valve and just putting in a nice fitting, and then off you go. No, because these cars are rotten, and a lot of the times those fittings that are here, they're compression fittings. They are rotted. So here we are. So this is one of the valves, and as you can see, it's got a lot of yeah, pretty much good luck to you. So we basically had to rupture it out, or I had to rupture it out just so I can cut up a line. But what do you know? A Simflex. So Germans had a dirty little secret. All the connection lines are Simflex lines, which are basically, you know, dot rated lines for that you could use for doing air suspension, right? A regular, you know, Simflex line, or, you know, the one that you run into your bags. So this is what it goes through, and then it goes into the metal lines connection. So basically, somewhere along here, I'll show you guys later in a second, somewhere along here, there's a Simflex line that goes from here to here. So this is where we have that line. So we cut it. But the problem is this is not a 3/8 line. This is not a 1/4 inch line. It is a 5/16 line. So what we did here is we have a 5/16 line, and it actually fits perfectly in there. You know, so what we're going to do is we're going to bypass it using this little doohickey. So I managed to get some fittings from each side. There's a loop over here that I did that I'm going to basically connect these two Simflex lines that are over here, and I'm going to connect them together, and I'm going to link the whole system. And then that's how you basically bypass fully the SLS without having to worry about the pressurization valve. But be careful, these are not 3/8 lines or 1/4 inch lines, they're 5/16. And how do I know? It's because these fit directly into there. That's how I know. So we're going to do that. I'm going to clean up the lines in the back, make sure there's no ruptures, put this bypass, and then the whole system will be eliminated. And then that's the end for SLS. This only pertains to if you're doing air suspension, really. You should not remove your SLS system if you have old school Mercedes. I mean, it's phenomenal. If you're not doing any crazy modifications or if you're not doing any air suspension, you know what I mean? Keep the SLS, make sure you maintain it, make sure you bleed it on a regular basis and keep it, because that's what really, makes your Mercedes drive better. I've heard people removing SLS systems and the car not driving as well. Well, in this case, we're going to put air suspension on it, so it's going to drive amazing. But for those that just put in Bilstein shocks and then ride on factory springs and whatnot, the ride's not going to be as good as if you're going to put a lot of load in the back, which is really what the purpose of the SLS system is. You're going to have a lot of issues and it's going to ride like, pardon my French, shit. So if you can keep your SLS and you want to maintain your car, as true to factory specs as possible, don't switch it up with Bilsteins. If your whole car is rotted and you have no choice, yeah, I say that. But if your car is mint, then don't do that. But in this case, we're going to bypass it because it's going to be running our bags. So so a little bit of a tidbit for you guys. I'm going to show you a close-up of it underneath the car just so you can have a better view on how we bypass the Synflex lines. Okay, so a bit of a change. What I ended up doing is I ended up kind of creating a doohickey like this. So I couldn't do a straight connection. I kind of had to do a loop like that. So as you guys can see, I'm going to zoom in. Here are the push to connects that go into the factory Synflex lines, which are 5/16s. Go into a fitting, and then I just did a 1/4 inch connection in between them, just like that, to loop the system. And push to connects will grip really nicely onto that and should be sufficient enough to keep the fluid inside the system flowing, not to overload your pump. For the secondary pump. I don't know if it's a power steering pump or something like that. I'm not really sure. I think it's a power steering pump. So this will allow to keep the fluid, but now the fluid is no longer under pressure because the pressure valve has been removed. So basically the whole SLF system has been canceled, and then those two lines that were coming up are now done like that. So I had to modify it a little bit. I had to put a line because I couldn't put it straight just because you don't have a lot of space there for the Synflex lines. So I did that, and that allows to loop and close the system off. And there you go. There's your SLS bypass right here. So hopefully this helps you guys out for now, and we continue doing this car. So this is a little bit of a pain in the ass. I had to fabricate a brand new mount on the bottom because the mounts that were supplied on this test kit were not a cup. The thing with the W140 suspension at the bottom is a cup. So you cannot just have a flat piece mating with a cup because it's going to slide, right? On top of that, I didn't really have a cup with a specific thread specification, so I welded up a thread onto the bottom of this cup here. I wish I could have taken a video of it before I did it, actually, but oh well. Just know that there's a cup there, and then the cup in the middle of the cup. This is a universal air lower cup. In the bottom of the lower cup, there's a thread, a steel thread that's welded that protrudes all the way through. So I have two points of security. I have one that's a cup on the bottom there, and I have another that has a thread. So it's basically the whole bag is tight from the bottom, from the cup not moving, and the upper cups I retained from whatever test kit I got that we're in the process of developing. So the upper cups are perfect. So yeah, so the front bags are in now. The rear bags are in as well. We're going to see how this thing airs out and go from there. This is pretty exciting, but yeah, still need some development on this kit. But this is the first time I'm doing a W140, so it's good learning experience for me. So I think now we should be seasoned, and we can go ahead and actually modify our setup to work perfectly right out of the box, which is amazing. Why we do these videos, to help people out and to have fun with it and enjoy it and do the modifications. But we're not done yet, so stay tuned. Okay, so the car is pretty much dropped. I'm getting a nice tuck in the back. It's just enough. It's perfect. It's literally like 2 millimeters off the edge of the fender. So this is a really, really beautiful stance. It's a tiny little bit of a tuck, not a full tuck, obviously, because these cars are hard to do that, but it's turned out really nice. The front, we're getting a really nice fender to lip. A little bit of a spacer would probably help because there's a huge gap over here, but this is really, really nice of a drop. So far looks pretty phenomenal, actually. These are 19s, so probably on 20s it will look a little bit better. And we're in the process, or I'm in the process of making the trunk setup right now. Just a basic sort of 5-gallon tank with dual 444Cs in chrome, and I fabricated a little riser for the 3-piece, so we're going to run some lines from that. It's going to look nice and clean, and clean wiring over here, nothing really crazy. Everything is sort of like the fuse boxes here and then the batteries here, so it's really easy on the W140s. The lines just need to be a little bit organized, but they're all running behind here. We got the remote wire, we have the power wire and the remote wire, and it's kind of funny that there's a little portal here that you can kind of fit it through from the tire well right into the battery and stuff. So we're going to do a proper ground, and there's a real ground point over there, so it's super easy. But that's it so far. Just working on the trunk, covered up the factory carpet because it was a little bit didn't look really nice and clean, so now I used some black carpet so it looks nice and clean. I can't wait to finish this up and put it in the trunk. And 3P's almost installed, and we're gonna air it up and air it down and do a calibration. Should be good to go, and then hopefully maybe I can do a little video of it being dropped on the ground. Stay tuned.